Welcome to What the Health? Where anything health is fair game as we tackle the trends and bust the myths about health and wellness. Here are your hosts, Dr. Dan and Angela Toro.
And welcome to another What the Health podcast. I am Dr. Dan. This is, as always, sponsored by Toro Family Chiropractic, and I am here with my co-host,
Angela Toro, and we're excited for another episode here. So before we jump in, our usual disclaimer that we're here to talk about health informational purposes only. We're in no way offering individualized medical advice. Always talk to your trusted healthcare provider when making changes or decisions about your personal health. So today, talking about something, here's a good one. We're going to be talking about Hormone Harmony. So, should we do the joke?
Oh, go ahead, do it. Is it on your head?
I think it's a big, the big question is, how do you make a hormone? Don't pay her.
Don't pay her. Oh
I'm so sorry. That was...
We're going to get comments for that one. That is how our anatomy physiology teacher started 11th grade anatomy class.
Yes.
So if she got away with it, hopefully we can too.
So that's a shout out to her. So hormones, big. Obviously, that's a big topic. So we're, right off the bat, neither one of us are hormone specialists. So we're really coming at this from what you always say, the 30,000 foot view.
And how is this, how does this look from, what we're doing? And again, I always like to go back to the intelligence of the body, and so much of what goes on in our body, these, hundreds of thousands of, millions of messages and biochemical reactions that happen in every one of our cells every second of the day. All of that is coordinated, so harmoniously, and we never have to think about it. And again, I sit back and laugh sometimes because, people just come in, and we as healthcare practitioners, we want to measure everything, measure this and that, and it's like, that person, you could have this snapshot picture in time of, what's going on in a person's body at that moment. They could get up, leave your office, and something could change, and all of that would change in an instant.
Exactly.
And so much of what is regulated from a hormone level and so many other factors is regulated under a system called homeostasis. And that means that the body has this set point for different measurements in the body, and hormones are no different. Your blood pressure runs around a set point, your temperature runs around a set point, your sleep-wake cycle runs around what should be a set point, but yet your hormones are extremely tightly regulated, because if they go out of whack too far one way or another, too high or too low, your body can go into a very vicious downward cycle very, very quickly. So the body, as I always say, will always try and move you towards a healthier state. Sometimes moving you towards a healthier state, may look, vicious or look unhealthy or look dysfunctional, but the body is always going to try and move towards that health, towards homeostasis, towards balance, towards harmony, because that's what it's designed to do.
Yeah.
There's a book on that somewhere.
I know, there's something about that. I think I read that one. But and it's just, and hormones, again, because it's such a broad term, there's so many different types of hormones, and they can affect so many different things, like you just said. And so, I think it's important to address before we dive in. I know you're going to talk about, specifically kind of how they work and communicate, but, just to catch people's interest, because if you're already kind of going like, hormones, what's that? Like estrogen, that's the one people always seem to think about, like, this doesn't apply to me. But we're talking about if you ever struggle with things like unexplained weight gain or weight loss, unexplained or excessive sweating, difficulty sleeping, changes in sensitivity to cold and heat, dry skin, changes in blood pressure, heart rate, weak bones, irritability, anxiety, the list goes on and on and on. Mood.
Just thinking of those drug commercials with all the side effects.
Mood changes, bloating, changes in your digestion, vision, puffy face. Puffy face is a big one. I know a lot of people have had issues with that.
Yeah, puffiness around a lot of different areas of the body.
Yeah.
But definitely you see it in the face.
There are, so many things. So if any of those things, or if you've had any kind of chronic issues going on. We talk about a lot how lifestyle can affect that, and that's because our lifestyle can absolutely affect that harmony of our hormones. So that's really why it's so important, because it truly does affect every part, every system of the body.
Yeah.
And then, as we know, when one system starts to go, the other
systems fall. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, and that's where getting into some of this intercommunication of all that, and this is what has just blown my mind. I mean, we still know so little, and we're learning more every day just from a healthcare and and a scientific approach to the body. I think sometimes we get so narrow focused, and we look at like, oh, we discovered this, and but we have no idea what the heck it means.
It's like, cool.
But when we look at it, back in the, I believe it was around the 70s, there were several scientists working in different areas across the world and, kind of working separately, but they all came to similar conclusions. And really in that time frame, about, 40, 50 years ago, this whole concept of either PNI, psychoneuroimmunology, or NEI, neuroendocrine, nerve endocrine immunology. So anytime you hear the word neuro, that's nerve. Anytime you hear the word endocrine, that's hormone. Immune system is the same. But they started looking at the communication between those three systems of the body and realizing, because again, before that time, they thought the brain was the master control system, which it is to some extent, but I don't like to say master control as much as I like to say master coordinator.
There you go.
I think that is a much better understanding of what the brain does. But the nervous system, the endocrine, your hormone system, and your immune system all work by, they are all communication systems within the body. And, a communication system needs three things. You need a transmitter, okay? You need a message, okay? And you need a receiver, okay? So, all three of those systems, the nerve, the endocrine, and the immune system, you have an area where the message is created in the body, and then, a messenger, okay, that can be sent, and then you need a receiver. So, the nerve messages typically created in the central nervous system, brain and spinal cord. Your endocrine, your hormone messages are created in the endocrine organs. And actually the biggest endocrine organ is in fact your brain. Actually, I should back that up. But yes, one of the largest endocrine organs is in fact your brain. And then you have your immune system, and so your immune cells, and there are a couple different immune organs, your bone marrow being one of them, spleen is another one. You have immune organs that are creating, nerve messages at the cellular level, or immune messages at the cellular level. But anyway, you start with the location of those, and then each one of those types of cells, nerve cells, hormones, endocrine cells, immune cells, create a different type of messenger. Okay, and the messenger is just a little molecule. Okay, and I'm trying not to go too far into the biochemistry of this, because again, I'm not a biochemist. But your nerves create what are called neurotransmitters. That is the messenger. Your hormones, your endocrine system, your endocrine cells create hormones. Those are the chemical messenger. And then your immune system cells create cytokines. Those are the messengers. And so all of those messengers that are created in those three different systems, it's not, nerve cells just don't communicate with nerve cells. Hormones don't just communicate with hormones. Immune cells don't just communicate with immune cells. All three of those messengers, the neurotransmitters, the hormones, and the cytokines, they intercommunicate with all cells across the body. So we talked about, you have the sender of the message, the creation site of the message, the messenger itself, the neurotransmitters, hormones, and cytokines, and then you have the receivers. Receptors for every one of those neurotransmitters, endocrine or hormones, and cytokines are on every cell in the body. So, when you have when you have a message that is sent, you have the ability, the body has the ability to communicate very almost instantaneously across the entire system. So again, I know that's kind of 30,000 foot view, generalizing. The biochemists are probably like grunting under, grinding their teeth like, Dr. Dan, you're this is so simplistic and you're wrong in so many ways. And I get that. That there's obviously there's so much more intricacy to all of that, but you have to understand. You have
to have the basic understanding, because again, then that comes into what we're interested in, which is how the lifestyle and how the chiropractic and how all of that can affect it. So yes, you don't need to be a biochemist to understand that our cells communicate, and what we do or don't do on a regular basis can affect that. That's the big sum up of what Dr. Dan.
Let me sum up.
Let me summarize what Dr. Dan just said there.
So yes, it's all interconnected. And so going back to what I mentioned about the PNI psychoneuroimmunology or NEI neuroendocrine immunology, those are now fields of study where it's a systems approach to health and well-being, and how it's not just your nerve system anymore. It is separated from your hormone system, is separated from your skin, is separated from your bones. You say it's all interconnected, and the beauty of the more we learn, the more we realize how interconnected it really is. In fact, it just amazes me about, just going back to hormones at the core, it amazes me how little the body has to change from a message perspective, to be able to make a very big change within the body. And so it's been estimated that a picogram, which is, if you take a gram, a gram is about the weight of a paperclip. A picogram is 1 gram times 10 to the negative 12th, which is 12 zeros and then the 1, which is, so again, very small, very microcosm of what the weight of a gram is. That's the concentration that the body needs to send into the blood for it to actually make a change. And the rest of it, and so our body creates more than that, but the rest of those hormones that the body creates are then just filtered out by the liver. Okay, and so I think that's important to understand, that the body makes more than it needs, but it only, it only takes what it needs to make the change, and then the rest it filters out. Because again, if it doesn't filter it out, and those signals can then start going haywire, and so that's important from a liver congestion standpoint, which we'll get into a little bit here. But yeah, I mean, your hormones are, my point being, your hormones are extremely tightly regulated, and how we live our lives has a big impact on our body being able to healthfully and harmoniously carry out those hormones.
Yeah, and I think that's a big thing we probably have heard about, and I know it's kind of become a big buzzword, which is the xenoestrogens, and that kind of fits perfectly with what you were just saying, where it only takes a small amount to make that change, and a lot of that comes with, because what you talked about, you have the message, but you also have the receiver. Yeah. So for people who don't know what a xenoestrogen is, it's basically artificial things in our environment that are mimicking estrogen. So they are mimicking that messenger, and they are connecting to that receiver. So now the actual estrogen cannot, because the receiver is already blocked up. Yeah. And that's one of the big ones that we see a lot of issues with, because xenoestrogens are becoming very, very popular. Plastic, so BPA is a big one. We see the BPA free plastic everywhere now, and that's one of the big ones people are familiar with. But things, obviously artificial, things like in birth control products is another issue. But things even like our cosmetic, our beauty products, our the things that we're putting on our skin on a regular, hand sanitizer, soaps, all of this stuff. If you look at those. Because we talk about checking labels all the time for food, but then if you think about all these products, our skin, oh my gosh,
that is your largest organ.
Yes, and that is it's a big way to get rid of toxins. Yes. It's a big way that we bring in toxins. Yeah. So when you look at your lotions and your body products and things like that, and they have a laundry list of ingredients
that you don't understand. You need Latin degree.
Same as we say with food and processed food. It's like, well, do you want to be eating a laundry list of things that you don't know what they are? Well, you also don't want to be putting that on your skin, because that's where we're seeing these And then also, obviously things with, our food too, again, is being pumped full of this stuff as well. So we're being so overly exposed. And then that's where we start to see a lot of issues with that, those transmitters. We start to see actually what's called estrogen dominance. And there's just, again, that could be its whole, that could be a whole podcast on its own. But that's a big one. And that's why we're hearing so much about it, because it, like you said, it takes so little to affect that. And we are bombarding our bodies with these fake, essentially, fake estrogens, so that the real ones, and men and women, this is affecting everybody. So this is not just a female problem. We're unfortunately just bombarding ourselves with these fake products, fake chemicals that are affecting the very natural process that our body knows how to do.
Well, let's dive into that a little bit, because talking about having the artificial messengers, these xenohormones, these are things that are they mimic, they look like a hormone, and so they are able to fit or bind to the receptor at the cellular level. And we talk about this. One of the easiest ways to understand it is using insulin as an example, because we think of insulin resistance. So if you have too much, you eat a meal. This is the normal process of how insulin's supposed to work. You eat a meal, your blood sugar, all that glucose, the sugar from your meal starts to get absorbed into the bloodstream. The body then receives that signal. It recognizes that, hey, concentration of blood sugar is elevated. And this is where the body, from a homeostasis standpoint, regulates things very, very tightly. The brain recognizes, hey, there is an increased level of sugar in the bloodstream. So now it's going to send a message down to the pancreas to say, hey, we need to secrete insulin. Because what is insulin's job? Insulin's job is to make the cells, all 70 trillion cells that make up your body, they all create energy from sugar molecules. It makes the cells more permeable to open up to allow sugar to enter into them, because without insulin, the cells won't let sugar in. So,
and the sugar is useless in the bloodstream.
It's useless in the bloodstream.
It needs to get to the cells.
Yes. In fact, it becomes toxic in the bloodstream. That's why diabetes is a very bad thing.
Yes.
So what happens is insulin then opens up the cells, and then the sugar from the bloodstream gets into the cell, that is where it's actually utilized to create energy for our body, which is a very good, healthy thing. The problem is, if we're too stimulated with too much sugar, it's not that the sugar causes the problem. What happens is now you have insulin that starts circulating through the system, and all of those receptors that are sitting on every one of your 70 trillion cells are getting stimulated by insulin, And I always use the example, Angela's sitting across the table from me. If I started reaching over and, hitting Angela or smacking Angela,
not advised.
But she was tied down, so she couldn't hit me back. She would want to move away from that stimulation because it would be very annoying. So that's what happens with receptors. Our bodies, again, this is all part of how we are genetically designed. If those receptors are constantly being stimulated, the cells get irritated, and so then there's a process called downregulation. So they actually pull those receptors back into the cell, and they break them down and they utilize them, but they pull those receptors back into the cell because they're tired of the irritation of the high levels of insulin in the bloodstream. Well, when the body recognizes that, it's not getting the change, the blood sugar is still high. Well, now it needs to secrete more insulin to get the same result. Now come in, Joe Schmo medical doctor, and they want to prescribe insulin because they need more artificial insulin to get into the body, which is only going to amplify the problem because we are now resistant because we've pulled all our receptors in. So rather, than 100 receptors, actually there's hundreds of thousands of receptors across every cell. But now instead of 100,000 receptors, now maybe there's only 50,000 receptors on the surface or 20,000 receptors on the surface. So you need more of the message to get to the same, result. But eventually you just get to a point where the body starts shutting down because it's, it's so dysfunctional because the receiving of the message has been removed in that it downregulated the receptor. So going back to the estrogen dominance and what you said with the xenohormones, if you are getting all of these ingredients everywhere from your diet, ingredients that you're putting over the skin, and those hormones are mimicking the natural normal hormones in the body, well, your cells start recognizing, or they start getting irritated. So what happens? They start down-regulating the receptors, and so now
the body's putting more of that estrogen out, and that's where you and
now you get high estrogen in the body, and high estrogen, too much estrogen in the body. Estrogen is very growth related in the body, okay? And so if you look at exactly what it does, again, biologically, we don't have to go into that, but it's essentially designed to grow, okay, quickly. And so many tumors, okay? You look at, especially in breast cancer, or ovarian, reproductive system, especially in women, are very estrogen dominant hormones. And because that estrogen just has nowhere else to go, because it hasn't been linked, it hasn't been filtered out by the liver, and it hasn't been, able to bind onto a receptor. So now it's just kind of floating in the bloodstream. So now it has to go somewhere, and it ends up where there are a lot of receptors, which is breast tissue and uterine tissue, ovarian tissue, and you end up having these cancers in females that are related to dominance of estrogen, all because of an artificial, activation of these hormones. So, all right, I'll stop.
Absolutely. I think that was a great example of how the artificial, but then also, like we said, just even too much of your body producing the natural hormone, so insulin, just too much of your body producing it itself, both ways are going to result in having that downregulation, and that resistance, and again, it's such a sensitive system. We see that with the thyroid as well. We can go either way. You can end up with, we have the hypo and the hyper active thyroids, and you can have that. And often, what do we see when you go on medication? For one, it can end up triggering the other way because the exact thing is happening. So you're doing you're artificially regulating those hormones, but then it can actually trigger it to flip and have the exact opposite reaction to it. So hormones, again, we're not specialists, we don't pretend to be specialists, but we know that they're a tricky business and we know that they're so sensitive. And that's why we really we want people to understand and know the questions to ask. Make sure you're asking questions when you're talking about your hormones. And if you're, first of all, you should be working with a hormone specialist if you're doing any kind of hormone treatment. If your PCP is trying to prescribe you medication for a hormone, I'm sorry, I would be asking a whole lot of questions. I actually went through this. I was in the hospital for something completely unrelated. My TSH and I think maybe my T4 or something. My thyroid hormones were quote unquote off or abnormal. Yeah. And so then, they sent me for follow-up tests and a scan on my thyroid and this whole thing. And they were talking about putting me on medication and because they thought I had hyperactive thyroidism. And I was like, well, I don't, because I know, I'm not losing weight. I don't have any of the symptoms of it, but they're just looking at these numbers. And,
exactly. Hyper-focused.
And I'm sitting there, I'm like, no, I'm not, because again, the only way to treat a hyperactive thyroid is to stop the natural production, either with medication
or cutting it out,
or surgery, and then that's when people develop hypothyroidism, and then you're on medication forever because if you destroy the thyroid either through radiation or by taking it out, you have to be on that medication forever because you have now taken away the natural ability. Yeah. And again,
surprise, thyroid hormone is necessary for a healthy life.
And again, I'm not saying that that's not sometimes necessary, but I'm just saying that's something where, I was like, absolutely, you have to give me a very good, very, very good reason. And hey, what do you know? Got my numbers rechecked. Everything was fine. It was just a fluke thing for whatever reason, because at that time, my levels were elevated, and
wouldn't you know? I just because that's what I mentioned right at the beginning of the episode, right? It's like we're looking at this as a snapshot in time, and I recognize this even as a chiropractor that we do certain tests on every visit. It's like I understand that we're taking a picture of a snapshot in time of what is going on in that person's physiology right then and there. So we have to use that and take that information with a grain of salt and compare it to everything else going on in their life. And here you are, young, active individual, and just happen to be having this, crazy off the numbers. Were you having any symptoms related to that, or they just did blood work?
They just did blood work. They did a full panel because that was
okay. They did a full panel, and they happened to, happen to have a high, hormone, and my goodness, it was like, it was almost like a false positive reading. It just happened to be higher, and then again, then you start going into the whole system and how our system is just like an absolute. Failure. You could have had, if you were someone who was not advocating for your health and you didn't know enough information to be dangerous and ask the right questions, you could have had your thyroid taken out at 30 years old.
It's just, so that's where it's just really kind of understanding that there are natural ways to correct hormones, and again, in our society, sometimes we don't want to put in the work. We want the quick fix. Give me the pill.
Instant gratification.
Yes, instant gratification, but especially when it comes to anything, but especially when it comes to hormones, that is just, it's a dangerous road to go down because like we just said, it's
so tightly regulated.
As soon as one thing starts to get off, it's going to, Dr. Dan was saying, it's not just your endocrine system that it's going to affect. It's, now you're talking about possibly affecting how your endocrine system's communicating with the other cells in your body, and it can become a very, very dangerous road to go down, and they are so easily influenced by our lifestyle. Another big hormone that I really like to talk about because it's unfortunately another one that our modern lifestyle has destroyed is cortisol, and specifically the cortisol melatonin cycle, so the sleep-wake cycle. So cortisol, lots of functions in the body. It's kind of gotten the unfair name as the stress hormone. It's what everybody thinks about, and it's because during times of high stress, you get a spike in cortisol. So yes, it is associated with that fight or flight stress response, but it's also very, very important in sleep. It's exercise. Yes. So it plays a big role in our body, and it's also very, very easily influenced by our lifestyle. So again, it's the sleep-wake pattern are naturally, so your cortisol starts to spike as you're waking up in the morning. So about an hour before you wake up, it's what physically gives you the energy and alertness to get out of bed. Yeah. That's why you don't have to grab a Snickers bar on the bedside table to physically get yourself out of bed in the morning. Cortisol does that for you.
The Snickers sounds
I don't know why I thought of Snickers. It just seemed like, I think I was thinking of the commercials with the hey, you're hungry. Here's have a Snickers. But yeah, so that cortisol gets you up, that spikes, and then the melatonin later in the day is what brings you down to get you ready for that bedtime. But what's happening with the artificial lights, we're staring at screens all day, we're not sleeping, we're not exercising, or we're exercising at the wrong times or too much. Actually, as much as I'm a proponent for exercise, high intensity exercise too close to bed can really, really screw up that sleep-wake pattern. I know that's for some people it's the only time they have, but it's unfortunately not necessarily the best option. But I
think it's also important to understand the importance of waking up at the same time every day.
Oh yeah,
because you just mentioned cortisol starts to spike right before you wake up. But if you're waking up at a different time every morning, you're literally messing with your body's signal because it doesn't know when the hell to wake up.
If you've ever noticed that, if there's days you kind of wake up before your alarm. So like today, perfect example for me, I had an alarm set, but I woke up the same time I wake up every morning, which was before I technically needed to, because it's just, your body gets into that routine, and it's better to just get up and start your days. Have you ever noticed that if you wake up before your alarm and then you fall back asleep, and then when that alarm goes off, you feel, and that's part of it is because you just now slept through, you wasted your natural cortisol burst. So cortisol, big one that is affected regulated by our lifestyles. And then again, once it gets out of whack, it is absolutely going to affect things like our energy levels. It's going to affect our weight. So especially if you're carrying a lot of weight right in the mid region there, a lot of that's that kind of stress response, cortisol.
Fluid retention.
Yeah. So again, just another small example of a complicated process, but how it can be so easily influenced by our lifestyles. And our modern lifestyle is just, unfortunately, we call this hormone harmony, but really it's, we have so much disharmony now with the way what we eat, what we do, what we don't do, what we put on our skin, not sleeping when we should.
You mentioned, and maybe you should go through that list one more time.
The symptoms?
If you have some sort of disharmony, dysregulation of hormones, what are some signs that someone would know? I mean, I know I always go through that, if you've got some sort of brain fog, if you're getting headaches, especially regularly in the morning, that's a very telltale sign that you have some hormone dysregulation, usually around thyroid. Brightness. Okay, if you have a difficulty, walking around or driving, and bright light bothers your eyes, that is usually hormone related. You talked about the puffiness or the fluid retention around the face. A lot of times you see it in the feet and the ankles. Around the hands and the wrists. You just see a lot of that puffiness. We don't like to say the marshmallow man, but that's kind of if you picture it, you're not seeing the tendons and the ligaments. It's literally all swollen in there. That's fluid retention, hormone regulation. So, but what are some of the other symptoms that someone would know that they could be suffering from dysregulation of their hormones?
So the unexplained weight gain or weight loss, again, that's a big one. That could be a thyroid issue. Unexplained or excessive sweating. That's, women, we know, we're familiar with hormonal changes. If it's around your cycle or around, menopause, obviously that's normal. But if you're kind of having this sort of unexplained, or if it's excessive, that could definitely be a dysregulation there. Difficulty sleeping. So if you're sleeping too much or not enough, or a big one with cortisol. I hear people say it all the time. Oh yeah, I wake up around like 2-3 a.m. and I'm just wide awake. That is a classic cortisol dysregulation. So if that's you, if you fall asleep, maybe sleep really well and then up right at that time, and it's pretty consistent, that's a big sign that there's some cortisol issues going on there. The skin, your skin, skin and hair, big. So if they're brittle, dry, losing chunks of hair,
or
nails are breaking.
Growth in areas, especially for women. They're getting, the mustache or the goatee type thing, or like the big sideburns. Again, a lot of times that's very related to, high testosterone.
Acne, really bad acne, especially if you're getting on the chest, back. That chest and back acne. That's classic hormonal acne.
And a lot of times it's congestion, right, from the liver. So the liver is trying to, as we mentioned earlier, the liver is trying to filter a lot of the excess hormones that our body doesn't need and utilize. It tries to filter them out. So if that liver starts getting congested from, not just natural hormones, but really from the artificial hormones, because that's your body's, filter. Well, then, your body's natural hormones and other artificial hormones have nowhere else to go. So it's literally, acne is literally, I say, the body trying to get rid of the toxic impact, from those hormones.
Same with if you're having like rashes or, kind of popping up, if, the eczema, the rosacea, things like that, that can certainly be a sign of that as well. And even just, something as simple as just your mood, your depression, mood, irritability. If you're just kind of feeling, again, I would say you're the advocate for your body. When something doesn't feel right. So if you're just feeling like maybe more irritable, you're snapping at people, like you feeling angry, feeling overly emotional, like if you're crying over every little thing, or getting angry over every little thing, those kind of things. It's it could be something situational going on, but if it's kind of happening, like if you find yourself, when something doesn't feel right. Like if you're sitting there like, why am I upset right now? I have absolutely no reason to be upset over this.
There's a reason they call it being hormonal.
Yes.
I'm not trying to sound insensitive, but no, it's literally, your hormones are going through dysregulation. They're not in harmony. So that's a very telltale sign that something is in fact wrong. It's not, us telling you like, hey, get it together. Go ahead and try to tell a woman or a man, who's having a hormone challenge. Oh, you're being a little hormonal right now. Yeah. See how well that goes for you.
So it really is. It's just kind of listening for any of those kind of changes. And as we talk about all the time, our bodies are very, very good at telling us when something is wrong. And hormones especially, they're not subtle about it. I mean, if you're having issues with your hormones, it's not going to be like, oh, I feel kind of off. Things are going to be off. I mean, it's going to, and it's probably going to start out slowly and then get really bad. And so you want to make sure you're keeping an eye on that stuff. You don't want to put off if you're dealing with these symptoms. You don't want to put it off as, I've always just had that. I'm just a tired person, or I'm just a moody person, or I'm just getting older. I'm just getting older.
All the time, right? and again, it's like we always talk about, we can't stop the aging process.
Yes.
What I say is we can stop the accelerated aging process, okay? Because so many of us bombarded by these xenohormones, these artificial synthetic hormones, we are accelerating our aging process. So let's eliminate that and age appropriately, age gracefully, as we talk about in the office, not accelerated, right?
Yes. And if you think, and we always talk about this, knowing your numbers is the place to start, and that's the first place to start, but then also working with somebody who knows your numbers and understands those numbers. So again, working with a hormone specialist, we have one that in the area we can refer you to if you need that information, because that's really going to be the key. Is you want to again, try to figure out, because if your hormones are out of whack, they're out of whack for a reason. Yeah. So getting to the underlying cause of it so that you can address that and then hopefully naturally fix the problem, maybe with some supplementation if needed, probably some lifestyle change. But ultimately, the more you can do to get to the root of it, but that one comes with, you have to recognize that something's off. Yeah. You have to go figure out what is off, get to the root of the problem. Because that's the other thing too. A lot of the hormones, you're gonna have similar symptoms. Yeah. So you have to get that testing done to know, is it an estrogen issue, a thyroid issue, a cortisol issue? I mean, especially when it comes to the mood, the irritability, the fatigue, some of the weight issues, a lot of those you're gonna see across the board. So you really need to get to the root of which it is, so you're addressing the right issue, you're making the right changes, and doing the best that you can to, again, naturally let your body get back to the point that it is regulating the way that it's supposed to be.
Well, and so, interesting you just said that, so many of the hormone challenges will present as similar signs and symptoms, so let's go to the heart of all of this, harmonizing our hormones. What you do to help get the communication system back on track is you're actually doing very similar, health and well-being practices, lifestyle practices to get it back on track. So, and I know sometimes we get these like, you guys are just you simplify everything, and it's like, well, health is simple. It's not easy.
It's not easy,
but it is, pretty simple in terms of you've got to make sure you're getting the right activity. We just did a podcast before this about making sure that you're moving enough, and our ancestors did the equivalent of probably walking 12 miles a day, and we do on a good day we do a third of that. So making sure that you're moving appropriately. I just said earlier about going to sleep at the same time every night.
Yeah, sleep is a huge one.
Huge impact.
Yeah, we'll be doing a whole podcast on sleep.
Yeah, we did sleep posture. Sleep posture is available, but whole podcast.
I tell people all the time, I don't care what you do. I don't care what your diet looks like, your exercise looks like. If you are not sleeping, you're not going to
heal.
You're not going to be healthy.
Yeah, that's when the majority of your healing takes place. Because there are biochemical systems that turn on and turn off that change when you're sleeping. And so, if you're not getting a good quality night's sleep, you're absolutely right. I mean, and then again, you just start the vicious cycle over again because your body never has a chance to rest,
to recover,
and recover. Exactly. So, the activity, the going to sleep, making sure that you're getting, you're physically tiring your body out through the proper exercise and activity levels. Again, we could go into. I don't think we're not going to go into the ingredients that are out there in this podcast, but you have to be aware. There's so many different websites and resources now. And again, if you have questions on this stuff, please reach out. We can, get you some lists. But there are artificial ingredients everywhere, and it's not just in your food. Your stuff gets into your body either through your digestive system or from literally the outside on your skin in, okay? And so there's so much of the creams you were mentioning earlier, the creams, the lotions, the hand sanitizers, soaps, shampoos, makeup, all of that stuff gets into your system. So if you're putting something that is artificially based, synthetically based, and that is mimicking a hormone.
I was just talking to someone last night, and I was saying how I was like, I haven't worn makeup for years because I was having so many reactions to it, and it just wasn't worth it. And I feel better without it. And the woman's like, oh yeah, I break out all the time, but I still wear it. I'm like, what? I was like, so you're having a very specific reaction. You're having this. You know what the cause is. You know it's the makeup. You put the makeup on, you break out, and yet you continue to do it. So.
And again, there's so much of that. I think is just a reflection. It's very sad that we've gotten to a point in terms of our culture has.
It's more important to have your makeup.
Has driven this identity that I have to wear makeup to be pretty. What a piss poor, pardon my French, message to be giving our young women that you need to wear makeup to be pretty. It's just bullshit.
And again, it's nothing to say if you like wearing makeup and you want to wear makeup, but that's, again, I tell people, if you want to, go for it. I never enjoyed it. I always did it because I felt like I had to, and then when I started having those issues, I'm like, why am I doing this? I don't even enjoy it. It's like I'm spending all this time putting it on in the morning and then take it off. And
again, it's like, and I have seen, I've seen shows, that where they actually take a woman who does have a ton of makeup on, and they teach her ways to wear the appropriate makeup, and just a little bit of touching.
Even just cutting down the amount.
Completely transitions, and they actually look more beautiful. I mean, my wife Erin gets comments all the time on how beautiful her skin and her hair look. Well, it's because she doesn't wear a lot of makeup, if any at all.
Put products in her hair.
She doesn't put products in her hair. And so, and again, it's like, please don't think that we're, discrediting. If you like to do that, and that's part of your, that's part of your routine, and you enjoy styling yourself, with makeup, that's fine. But I would certainly, you have to be aware that stuff, a lot of that stuff is artificial.
And that's where you really want to look at high quality products. Make sure that you're, again, just being aware that everything that you're exposing your skin and hair to is getting into your body. So
you are beautiful exactly the way you are.
Right.
And I'm not saying that facetiously.
Again,
I really think that again, we need to be careful how we're teaching our young women.
I say all the time, we need to start prioritizing health.
Yes.
Health over beauty.
Yeah.
Because being healthy is beautiful.
Yes.
Being healthy is beautiful. And
there it is.
And unfortunately, it's, again, we have the pills for everything, we have the creams and lotions, and we have so many ways to cover up all of the things that could just easily be addressed if we just focus on our health.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and aesthetic, aesthetic is part of a philosophy. It's part of a culture. But again, how we get that, I think the aesthetic needs to be harmonized with our health.
Exactly.
We talk about, bodybuilding and some of the athletics, and those aren't healthy long-term, solutions. Now, to do that as part of a competition, and understanding that it's a temporary thing.
Talk about things that can affect your hormones. That kind of stuff. The bodybuilding that is not regulated.
It absolutely messes with you. And again, understanding the long-term consequences of that. We don't necessarily teach our young children, so they go from adolescence, into young adulthood through college, and
seeing that
and thinking that's normal. And again, that is not. I understand it's there for a competition, but that is not normal, healthy behavior. And a lot of what we do is helping that athletic mindset unlearn some of those behaviors. We have a couple athletes that are now in their 60s and 70s, and their body is just trash because they broke down their joints so much early on in life that now they have just gotten to a point that it's almost beyond recovery. So
we're getting off topic.
Yes, we are getting off topic. So, but again, we've gone through a lot of the symptoms. Understanding that you're getting enough activity level, getting the right sleep, and again, that's a whole other podcast.
Eating the right things, getting healthy fats. We did a whole
podcast on fats. Yeah. So again, the activity, the diet, the sleep, and then again the mental, emotional. That just goes into having a good, strong identity, and understanding your purpose in life and having good quality connected relationships. And it can be one relationship, it can be 100 relationships, depending on if you're introvert or extrovert.
Everyone's my best friend.
Everyone's my best friend versus I don't want to talk to anyone, I have one person. But again, either way, we are meant to be connected individuals, and so having those good healthy relationships does affect our hormones. Again, it's scientifically proven. If you just smile at someone, they are getting, not only are you by smiling changing your hormones, but you are impacting their hormones because they're receiving that smile. That's scientifically documented, how hormones are impacted. So even if you have to force it, again, fake it till you make it. I love and hate that saying, but there's something to be said in terms of your demeanor and your hormone level when you're sending that, but then also as another human being receiving that changes the hormone makeup. So your mental, emotional, spiritual state has a big impact on that as well. So again, that's the 30,000 foot view and understanding of it. And again, there's so much more that we could go into, but just helping how we harmonize those. I think Angela really hit it, making sure that you have a couple different members of your healthcare team that you love and you trust to be able to talk to people about this. Understanding the different signs and signals and how they're related, and at least starting the conversation of where to look, knowing your numbers, and then again just doing the work in terms of what we just said: activity, diet, mental, emotional, spiritual work.
That and actually a great resource. We carry it in the office, and it's available on Amazon as well as Dr. Bob's
Balancing Female Hormones.
Yeah, so Balancing Female Hormones. He has one for male hormones as well, too, right?
Yeah, men's health.
But yeah, we recommend that constantly in the office. It's a fantastic. He does a great job of laying out in much greater detail what we talked about here. So if anything that we were saying is resonating, if you're a patient or local, stop in the office and ask us about it. Or again, you can get it on Amazon. But it's a fantastic book. It really, really helps. The other one that I recommend to people a lot is Beyond the Pill, which I'm going to forget the author for right now. But if you just look up Beyond the Pill, absolutely for any woman who currently is or has ever been on birth control. I read that it was quite shocking. As I was reading through it, I was like, wow, I had no idea how much of some of the things that I was dealing with were because of that. And again, you can't undo what's been, can't go back and take away the years that I was on it, but it can help you fix
from it.
Yes, exactly. It really she just absolutely does a wonderful job of laying out exactly what goes on, what naturally is supposed to happen with women's hormones, and then what happens when you put that artificial birth control into it. So just again, not saying what to do, just a great read. Really helps with, and she's great too about laying out specific supplements and a plan. And so it's just a really great resource for anybody. If anything we said is resonating, or if you feel like you've been having those issues, I could not recommend that.
I have to say one more thing. We just got to the end of this entire episode of Harmonizing Hormones, and we didn't bring up libido. How did we do that? We just went through this entire episode and didn't talk about libido.
I don't know.
And that's one of the cardinal signs of dysfunctional hormones.
Absolutely.
Having a healthy libido is actually a very good sign of healthy hormone regulation. So if you're a man or a woman, because this does not just impact women, men, I mean, and especially again, not to go off on another tangent, but statin medications, they kill your body's ability to have a good libido, but also to have an erection. I mean, you're just talking about, that's a whole nother talk that we could go into. But if you're struggling with libido, that's a hormone dysregulation. Absolutely. And again, just diving into the work, the signs, the signals, and then what to do about it. That's where, again, our team, other health professionals, you've got to get the team together that's going to support you getting healthy and staying healthy. So,
perfect way to end.
Perfect way to end it. So, I am Dr. Dan here with...
I'm Angela. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Check out our website, TuroFamilyChiropractic.com, Turo, Turo. As always, reach out if you guys have any questions, comments, if you'd like to come into the office. If you're not local, we can certainly, Dr. Dan has connections all over the country, can get you to the right place that's going to help you the way that we're very blessed to be able to help our patients. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. We'll see you next time.
See you next time.
You've been listening to What the Health with Dr. Dan and Angela Toro, brought to you by Toro Family Chiropractic. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.whatthehealth.world.